Hunn wrote an article on, I guess it was posted Thursday and it aired Friday, about the stadium. And David Hunn, no disrespect to you or your writing, I read this story numerous times, and I think I'm more confused after reading it than I was before I was.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why we're having you on here.
Well, thank you.
You broke the story that the Dome Authority is suing the state of Missouri.
Yes.
Okay. These two entities, I thought, were working together to somehow figure out a way to build a new stadium.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, McGraw, I misspoke. The Dome Authority is suing the city of St. Louis.
Okay, the Dome Authority is suing the city of St. Louis. Still, I thought they were really working together on the same page. Okay.
Yeah, they absolutely are. I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at this, right? And I'll tell you the way that the city has said they're looking at it first.
Okay.
And that is, they're not against this lawsuit. In fact, they want the lawsuit because they want to know what the answer is. The issue is there a public vote needed in order to use the existing, so right now, City of St. Louis sends $6 million a year in taxpayer money to help pay off the Edward Jones Dome, right? Those bonds go through 2021, and they'll be paying them, potentially for a bit. They want to take that money and refinance it, and then use it to help build the new stadium. Well, there's a law that was passed about 10 years ago that says if you use any taxpayer money at all to build a new stadium, you have to have a public vote. And so depending on who you talk to, they either don't want a public vote or they just want to know what the answer is. I mean, obviously, a public vote would take longer. Even if let's say you're a city person who thinks that it would pass, no problem. It still would cost a couple $1 million to get a campaign together. It takes some time. You have to get on the ballot. As soon as they could get on the ballot is probably August. So it's just a delay. And it's a delay that they don't want to, they just don't want to present to the NFL owners that there's any delay whatsoever. So they're asking the courts to figure out, is this law valid? The Dome Authority is suggesting it is not. The Dome Authority is suggesting that the law passed in the city conflicts with the law that created the public authority that built the Edward Jones Dome. And because those two conflict, state law trumps local law, and there wouldn't have to be a vote. That's the suggestion by the Dome Authority.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I feel like it is very complicated. I mean, you're right. You're right to be confused.
Yeah, no, well, and that's why because in your article I got that, but then and you sort of alluded to it there, which is it almost sounds like this is part of their strategy, even though it sounds like the city said, hey, we need someone to sue us so we can get an answer on this.
Yeah, well, that's true. There's no question. Everybody agrees on that point. That is what is happening. That is part of their strategy. Now, if you're a skeptic, you say, and the city, by the way, takes great offense at this, but if you're a skeptic, you say, well, the city's just not going to defend the suit very well. The Dome Authority is going to win, and there won't be a public vote.
Right.
The city says, hey, that's not fair. You don't know what we're going to do. We're not even there yet. We promise we're going to defend this suit. We don't want to falsely win or lose. We just want to know what the answer is, and we need to know what the answer is soon. So that's what the city says on why they're, I suppose, amenable to the suit.
Okay, so as part of this conversation, it came out in the last few days before this that the state said, we don't need the county's money.
Yeah.
So why isn't the Dome Authority suing the county or vice versa? Or why are we treating the county differently than we are from the city?
So they've hinted at that, but they haven't answered it outright. The hint is that the laws are slightly different. So the county also has the same rough law in the books, that there has to be a public vote if any new tax money is going to go towards a new stadium. The difference is that in the county it's a charter amendment. So it actually changes kind of the constitution of the county's creation, right? Whereas in the city it's just an ordinance, it's just a law. So there is a slight difference in the structure of the law in the two entities, and that's the suggestion from the planners, is that because there's a difference there, that they can't do the same thing in the city and county. Now that said, we also know some just practical things, right? In the city, this is a city project. It's redeveloping city land. It's probably got a decent chance of passing a public vote in the city, unlike in the county, where there's really a lot more consternation about a new stadium using taxpayer money.
Right.
And much less, it'd be a much more difficult sell to county taxpayers than to city taxpayers.
Yeah. So the thinking of the powers to be think that if it were to go to a vote in the city, it would have a better chance, or it at least has some chance of passing in the city.
Yeah. And I actually agree with that, McGraw. I talked to a lot of people about this, and, it's really popular to think, it's really popular for naysayers to think that there's no way this would pass in either the city or the county. I disagree with that. I think that it's actually much more popular than people give it credit for. I think there's a lot of people out there who love the Rams, a lot more, frankly, than I realized.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when this whole process started, I didn't put the Rams as high on the kind of love list in this area as maybe I should have. But I've learned a lot over the last, year?
Right.
And there are some folks out there who, there's a lot more people than I thought who absolutely love the Rams.
So what happens if this were to go through, and whether the vote or the public vote, whichever one, and they start to build the dome with the $6 million monies that's coming out of the state, or it's coming out of the city? Right. What happens to the county money after the county pays off its bonds? It just goes into general revenue?
So that's a great question, and they have hinted at that also. It's in one of the stories. Darn it, I've written so many times about this, I forget which one. But they said at one point. In fact, I think Nixon did. That's a question for another time. We'll tackle that in another date. We're not going to tackle that right now. But that's a question for future planners. To me, what that says is you better believe that the powers that be are going to go back to the county and ask for that money again.
Right.
Not now.
Yeah. And what about the state? The state is the state is paying $12 million a year to service the debt on the dome. We've heard a couple of rumblings that they want it to go to a vote and that they're not going to vote to give this money going forward. Where's the state stand in all this?
You mean where does the state money stand?
Yeah.
So that's a good question too. That actually is a little more fraught with difficulty than we're discussing in recent days. The legislature threw a fit. At least some of the members of the legislature threw a fit that the money could be kind of refinanced. Same thing. So the state basically wants to do the same thing, right? Refinance the $12 million it spends on the Edward Jones Dome every year and use that money towards a new stadium. Well, the legislators said, hey, hold on a second. We're not doing that. You can't do this without our approval. And they passed a law. Put a bill, and the bill's gone through the Senate. And so the Senate's already approved a bill saying, you can't do this without our approval. Now, it's got to go to the House. I'm not 100% sure it's got a real good chance of passing, to be honest.
Right.
But there is definite concern in the legislature of just letting Nixon roll this money over into a new stadium.
Is there anybody out there who is saying the letter of the law might be one thing, but the spirit of the law clearly is that the people wanted this to go to a vote and that the spirit of the law should be respected? Yeah, there is. There absolutely is. Not the city, and not the new stadium planners. Right. But there's been some. In fact, in this most recent story on Friday, I quoted a professor at St. Louis University, John Amman, and he's one of the guys who is actually suing. Or that's not true. Sorry, threatening to sue the city over this very issue, over the public vote. He wrote a letter to the city with some of his students, some of his legal clinic students, and he said that exact thing. Like, come on, guys. Let's say for a second you're right. You can figure out some way to get around this. Is that correct? This passed in the city 55-45, 12 years ago or whatever it was. Right. Are you really trying to go around what the voters clearly said they wanted to vote on? David Hunn with us for a couple more minutes. The one thing... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Well, the answer really is that, yes, they do right now. They want to get around this. And it's not so much... I think one thing to be careful of is I don't really see this as them trying to sneak something by. I think they feel like they have to do it. They have to tell the owners,
we have nailed down financing here and here and here. So they got to present this to that owners committee, that LA Opportunity Owners Committee, this spring. And if they go in saying, well, we have this money, but it still's got to be passed by a public vote. We have this money and it still has to get through the legislature. And then we have this money, but it's not quite pinned down yet. I think they perceive that they're going to be in real trouble.
Right.
If, on the other hand, they come in and say, listen, we've nailed down this and this. Yes, we still have a question mark on this, but we're really close to it. The further they can get along, the more they feel like they could get approval from the owners.
Right. Approval from the owners to keep the Rams here?
Well, good point. It's actually the opposite, right? It's the owners blocking Kroenke from moving, or finding another team to send to St. Louis.
Right. So their thinking is, we put our best foot forward to the owners. The owners say, boy, the Rams have gotten their finances buttoned up to the point where we're not going to allow the Rams to move, or it's so buttoned up we want to give them another team.
Yeah. So here's the kind of tough reality that St. Louis is in right now. The best of San Diego, Oakland, and St. Louis has by far the most advanced local plan to build a stadium. These guys are far more prepared for what's coming than local efforts in Oakland and San Diego.
Right.
At the same time, Stan Kroenke has the most advanced plan in Los Angeles.
Right.
Excuse me, McGraw. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold here.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So it's just it puts the owners in a bind to some degree. Frankly, it puts Kroenke in a bind to some degree. St. Louis is so far along on their plan. If the owners say, "Yeah, we don't care about that you're so far along," that's really going to bode poorly for them. And they don't. They've said numerous times they do not want to. Just if a city's doing everything it's supposed to do,
right,
to keep a team, I don't think the owners are going to move a team without giving them another.
Right.
That way.
But that comes to San Diego moving to St. Louis, which a lot of people don't see that happening. The Raiders moving to St. Louis, a lot of people don't see that happening. You have said to us that they've sort of ruled out expansion.
Yeah, they have. Listen. These guys can change their minds. They're 32 owners.
Right.
They have all have interests. They're interested probably most in the bottom line. If they see an opportunity for economic growth in the NFL, I think they'll take it.
Right. Last question for you, David Hunn. Did a great job on all this stadium stuff. It seems to me, reading your article and reading all of your articles, they're playing a cat and mouse game. It's like they're eking out information only when they absolutely have to. And now that they've filed this lawsuit, that becomes public knowledge. Therefore, we have some information. But everyone's pretty tight-lipped on it. It seems to me like they're doing everything in their power not to tell the public what they plan to do with our tax dollars.
Yeah. I have to admit that is a personal frustration of mine. And I've urged them over and over again to be more forthcoming on what their plans are. Their answers always are the same, that they don't want to tell the public one thing and then do something different. They don't want to, every time something changes, come out with a different plan. They feel like the public will think that it's not real. The plans are they're just making them up as they go. But I agree with you. It's frustrating to me. They are being very, very tight-lipped about their financing right now. I think we're all waiting, and to see what they actually come out with.
How long does this lawsuit have before a judge arbitrarily rules on this?
We need to watch and see what judge it gets assigned to. I don't expect. It's going to be quick. They're saying it's going to move quickly, and I think all parties will want to move it quickly.
Gotcha. Is it a city judge?
Oh yeah, it'll be state court that in the city.
Okay, in the city.
It'll be a city judge for sure.
David Hunn, great job. Get over that cold. We need you on this, and you're welcome here anytime. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.
David Hunn here, a Big 550 KTRS. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I'm so glad he comes on to explain all this, because there's the story and then there's the story. And somebody once told me that a reporter in the newspaper tells us what they know, And when they talk to us, they tell us what they think, and it's really interesting. So we appreciate David Hunn coming on. We'll talk more about that, and maybe talk a little opening day. But I want to talk a little stadium financing, stadium deal, taxes, public votes, non-public vote. 926 here, Big 550 KTRS. Want to organize your